This house was fine when you were starting out, my daughter-in-law's mother said, looking around my one-story ranch. But Martin could afford something that does not look so cheap. Her husband agreed and suggested I sell before the neighborhood declined. They believed my home was the last asset of a cautious widower. They did not know I owned 6 more houses built from the same plan, including the one their daughter wanted to rent. My name is Martin Vale. I was 62, widowed, and a retired electrical estimator. I had lived in the same 1,200-square-foot house for 28 years. The kitchen cabinets were painted, the floors were oak, and the roof did not leak. I considered that a successful house. My son Jordan married Anna 4 years earlier. Anna's parents, Barbara and Leon Whitaker, lived in a gated development with a clubhouse, stone entrance, and association rules for mailbox colors. They were generous hosts and proud of what they had built. They also treated visible expense as evidence of good judgment. The remark came during Jordan's birthday dinner. I had repaired the back steps and left one board unpainted until the weather dried. Barbara noticed. She asked whether maintenance was becoming too much for me, then she used the word cheap while offering advice about senior communities. I asked which part of the house failed to serve me. Leon mentioned resale image, entertaining space, and neighborhood prestige. I said I valued low taxes, familiar neighbors, and a paid-off mortgage. He smiled as if frugality were a polite name for inability. I did not reveal the rental portfolio. For 23 years, my late wife Rosa and I had purchased modest houses near schools, bus routes, and steady employers. We avoided luxury renovations and high leverage. 6 rentals remained after we sold 2 properties to longtime tenants. The houses looked similar because a local builder had repeated 3 plans across the neighborhood. Each had 3 bedrooms, 1 or 2 bathrooms, a small yard, and simple mechanical systems. People dismissed them as starter homes. Families often stayed for years because the monthly cost and maintenance were predictable. Rosa had been a payroll supervisor. She understood records, reserves, and the danger of treating rent as spendable income. We kept separate accounts for every property, funded roofs before they failed, and used written screening criteria. If a repair consumed 1 year's profit, the reserve absorbed it. After Rosa died, I hired Summit Residential to manage calls and leasing. I still approved capital work and reviewed monthly reports. Tenants did not need a grieving owner improvising service. Professional management cost money and protected everyone from my changing schedule. The 7 houses, including mine, had a combined market value near $4,600,000. Rental debt totaled under $900,000. My retirement accounts and cash reserves raised my net worth above $4 million. I drove an ordinary car and cut my own grass when my knees allowed. Anna and Jordan lived in a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Their landlord planned to renovate at lease end, and they needed another place within 3 months. They wanted to keep saving for a down payment rather than rush into a purchase. One of my rentals was becoming available. The departing tenants had bought a house after 7 years. The ranch sat near Jordan's workplace and Anna's hospital. Its rent was below newer apartments but had to remain consistent with our written range. I had not offered it because family tenancy could damage both relationships. Jordan eventually saw the listing through Summit's website and called. He recognized the street, but not the owner company, Vale Rosa Homes. "Is that yours?" he asked. I told him it was. I also told him the manager would handle the application and I would not view Anna's personal documents. They could apply, but family status would not guarantee approval or a discount. Jordan already knew I owned some rentals, though not the number or value. Anna knew almost nothing. She told Barbara, who warned that renting from family was risky. Barbara assumed I owned 1 spare house and might interfere with decorating. Summit approved Jordan and Anna under the same income, credit, and reference rules used for others. The proposed rent matched a renewal offered to the prior tenants, adjusted by 3%. I included no hidden family premium and no private bargain. At a dinner to discuss the move, Barbara said Anna should not settle for another cheap ranch. She suggested that Leon and I combine money for a down payment in their gated neighborhood. The least expensive listing there required a mortgage. Jordan and Anna could not comfortably carry. Leon offered $50,000 if I matched it. I declined. A gift that pushed the couple toward larger debt was not automatically generous. I said I would support a decision based on their budget, not our desire to choose their address. Barbara asked whether I could afford the match. Jordan tried to change the subject. I said affordability was not the only question. She replied that my house answered the affordability question for everyone. Anna looked embarrassed. I asked whether she liked the rental house. She said yes, especially the commute and yard, but she did not want our parents turning it into a contest. That was the most sensible statement at the table. 2 weeks later, a spring windstorm damaged roofs across the neighborhood. Shingles lifted from my house, and 4 rentals. A tree limb punctured the garage roof of a 5th. Summit's emergency system received tenant reports before I finished checking my own attic. I opened the property files at my dining table. Insurance policies, roof ages, contractor contacts, and reserve balances covered 7 addresses. Barbara and Leon arrived to help Jordan move boxes and saw the folders spread across the table. Leon read the street names. "Why do you have files for all these houses?" "I own them," I said. 6 rentals and this one. Barbara counted the folders twice. The houses she had called cheap represented a portfolio built over 2 decades. Her expression changed from concern to calculation, and I disliked both. She asked why I had allowed them to think I was struggling. I said owning a modest home was not evidence of struggle. Their conclusion came from the house, not from anything I had claimed. Leon wanted to know the total value. I gave a broad range and immediately regretted it. Barbara then asked whether Jordan needed to rent at all. If I owned 7 houses, surely I could give one to my son. I explained that each rental supported debt, reserves, taxes, management, and retirement income. Giving away a property would affect the plan and create unequal treatment with my daughter Elise. Estate gifts required structure, not pressure after a storm. Jordan supported me. He said he and Anna had applied because the house fit their budget, not because they expected inheritance early. Anna told her parents to stop using my balance sheet as a family vote. The storm shifted attention back to repairs. Summit hired one roofing company for inspections but required separate estimates for replacements. Insurance adjusters documented each address. 3 roofs qualified for partial storm coverage. 2 needed replacement mainly because of age and were funded from reserves. My own roof was the oldest. I paid for it personally, not through rental accounts. The houses looked similar, but their finances remained separate. That discipline prevented one tenant's rent from casually funding my residence. Jordan and Anna's rental had minor damage repaired before move-in. Summit documented the condition and delayed occupancy by 4 days, so paint and ceiling work could dry. They received a prorated rent adjustment automatically. Barbara interpreted the adjustment as family favoritism. Anna showed her the lease clause applying to any unavailable unit. Equal rules sometimes looked like favors to people who expected informal decisions. The couple moved in and received the same maintenance portal as other tenants. They could paint with written approval, plant a garden, and install shelves under standard terms. I did not keep a key outside management's emergency system. During the first month, a bathroom faucet leaked. Jordan called me instead of Summit. I told him to use the portal. He felt dismissed until the plumber arrived the next morning and replaced a failed valve. The process worked without making our Sunday phone calls into service requests. Barbara continued suggesting upgrades. She offered to replace the kitchen counters as a gift. Summit required plans because plumbing fixtures would be affected. The existing counters were sound. Anna declined, saying she preferred saving the gift for a future home. The storm repairs created the larger question. 2 rentals had aging electrical panels from a manufacturer no longer preferred by insurers. They remained legal, but renewal terms would worsen. My background made the risk familiar. I approved replacement across both houses before coverage forced the decision. The work cost $26,000. No rent surcharge appeared. The reserve schedule had anticipated major systems even if the exact panels were not listed. Ownership looked quiet because planning happened years before a contractor arrived. Leon asked to see my investment returns. He had begun considering rental property after learning about the portfolio. I showed him one anonymized property statement. The net income was much lower than gross rent after taxes, insurance, vacancy, repairs, management, and capital reserves. He said online landlords reported better returns. I told him some used more debt, did their own labor, deferred maintenance, or purchased at different prices. A higher number without the underlying risk was not advice. He proposed buying a large house near his gated community to rent. The projected rent would barely cover mortgage and association fees before repairs. I recommended against it. He suspected I wanted to keep property investing as my territory. I gave him the spreadsheet and encouraged an independent advisor. 2 weeks later, his advisor reached the same conclusion. Leon did not buy the house. He never thanked me directly, but he stopped calling my neighborhood a declining asset. Barbara's change took longer. She believed parents should use wealth to raise their children's standard of living immediately. I believed help should widen choices without attaching unsustainable costs. Neither principle was entirely wrong. Rosa and I had helped both children with education and modest wedding gifts. My estate plan divided remaining value equally with professional management options for the rentals. I would not transfer one occupied house to a child without considering tenants, taxes, and the other sibling. When a longtime tenant asked about buying her rental, I considered the request. She had lived there 9 years and maintained the garden carefully. An independent appraisal set the price. I offered a credit equal to part of avoided sales costs, not a secret discount funded by other tenants. She qualified and purchased the house. The sale reduced my portfolio from 6 rentals to 5. Barbara said I had given a stranger the opportunity I denied Anna. I explained that the tenant bought at an appraised price after years of planning. Anna was not asking to buy that house. The sale proceeds paid down debt on 2 remaining properties and restored storm reserves. Wealth did not require maximizing the number of houses forever. A fair exit could serve my retirement and another family's ownership. Jordan and Anna renewed their lease after 1 year. The increase was 2.5%, the same formula applied to comparable tenants. They had saved enough for a stronger down payment but decided another year of flexibility helped. Their decision confused Barbara. She believed remaining a tenant after building savings showed fear. Anna explained that her hospital was considering a schedule change and Jordan's company might relocate offices. A lease preserved options. Homeownership would still exist next year without forcing an uncertain purchase. I supported them without claiming renting was always wiser. A stable mortgage could protect long-term housing costs, while a rental transferred major repair risk. The right choice depended on time, reserves, location, and plans. Prestige was the least useful variable. Summit's annual inspection of their house found early moisture beneath a window. Jordan had noticed peeling paint, but assumed it was cosmetic. The report traced water to flashing installed during an old roof replacement. We repaired the flashing, replaced damaged trim, and tested the wall before mold developed. The work cost $6,400. Their rent did not increase outside the regular formula. That was exactly what rental reserves existed to absorb. Barbara saw the repair and admitted she had never included hidden maintenance when comparing rent with a mortgage payment. Leon began reviewing their own house more carefully. A contractor found failing sealant around 2 high windows and a drainage problem beside the foundation. Addressing both early cost less than the decorative renovation they had planned. The cheap ranch had indirectly taught the expensive house a maintenance lesson. Our conversations gradually became less competitive. Leon asked questions before offering conclusions. I stopped responding to every comment as if the dinner insult were repeating. Resentment can remain active after an apology if you keep preparing to win the old argument. Barbara still favored visible improvements. She helped Anna choose durable curtains and garden furniture that could move to a future house. The gift supported their current home without altering the property or creating a lease dispute. It also gave her a constructive role that did not require choosing the address. The portfolio faced another test when a tenant lost work after a factory closure. Summit's policy allowed a documented payment plan for up to 3 months. The tenant paid partial rent, found new employment, and caught up by the 5th month. Immediate eviction would likely have cost more and disrupted a family. The policy was not unlimited. Another applicant repeatedly missed agreed payments and stopped responding. Management followed notices, offered resources, and eventually completed a lawful eviction. I disliked the outcome, but pretending every tenancy could continue would shift costs and uncertainty onto the whole portfolio. I never discussed tenant names with Jordan or Anna. Living in a family-owned house did not make them informal managers. When neighborhood rumors spread, they directed questions to Summit. Privacy protected neighbors from becoming stories at our dinner table. Rosa had insisted on that principle after our second purchase. A landlord learns details about income, conflict, illness, and credit that do not belong to social life. She said access to information was a duty, not a form of intimacy. I kept her rule after she was gone. I found one of her handwritten reserve schedules while updating files. It projected roof replacements over 15 years and included a line for things we did not predict. The amount seemed excessive when she wrote it. Storm claims and electrical panels later proved her caution accurate. I showed the schedule to Anna, who asked whether Rosa had enjoyed property management. She enjoyed making systems work more than collecting buildings. Her goal was not to become a landlord people admired. It was to prevent one failure from damaging tenants, retirement, or our marriage. That distinction influenced my decision to sell another rental. A couple had managed it well for 8 years, but its foundation required monitoring and the house sat farthest from our contractors. An investor offered a high price with plans for a rapid rent increase. I declined that offer. Instead, I listed through an ordinary process and accepted a slightly lower offer from an owner-occupant after the tenant chose not to buy. The existing lease remained through closing. I disclosed the foundation reports, and the buyer retained the engineer. Profit mattered, but a clean transfer mattered too. The sale reduced the portfolio again. Leon asked whether fewer houses meant I was losing interest in wealth. I said wealth did not require permanent accumulation. At 62, reducing complexity while preserving income could be better management than chasing the largest possible estate. I used part of the proceeds to eliminate remaining debt on 2 houses and increase cash reserves. Monthly income became steadier even though gross rent declined. Barbara began to understand why counting doors alone revealed little about security. Jordan and Anna eventually made an offer on a 3-bedroom home outside both parents' preferred neighborhoods. The inspection found a roof near the end of its life. They negotiated a price credit and kept enough cash for replacement instead of spending every dollar on closing. Leon offered his original $50,000 gift without requiring the gated community. I contributed an equal amount under the family gift policy already used for a lease. The couple chose to apply most of the help to the down payment and retain an emergency fund. Their purchase did not prove that renting had been a mistake. The 2 rental years improved their credit, savings, and knowledge. They bought when the decision fit instead of buying to stop their parents from feeling embarrassed. Summit handled their move-out inspection. A scratched floor exceeded ordinary wear in one room. The manager documented the repair and deducted a standard amount from the deposit. I did not override it. Jordan disagreed, used the appeal process, and received a smaller deduction after providing move-in photographs. The appeal worked because records existed on both sides. Family authority did not decide who remembered correctly. Jordan later said the process was annoying and fair. I considered that an excellent description of many useful systems. Their former rental went to a respiratory therapist and her 2 children. The advertised rent followed the same annual range, not a sudden jump after family moved out. We replaced carpet, serviced the furnace, and left the sound kitchen cabinets in place. Barbara asked whether inexpensive finishes limited rent. They did, slightly. They also reduced debt, turnover cost, and pressure for constant increases. A house could remain financially successful without being staged as luxury. Durability was part of the investment strategy. Leon and I began having coffee without discussing property values. He admitted the insult at my house reflected his own fear of appearing unsuccessful after retirement. The gated neighborhood had become proof he felt required to maintain. Naming that fear helped more than showing him my net worth. I admitted that I had judged his lifestyle in return. His home was expensive, but he and Barbara used it for grandchildren, visiting relatives, and community events. The problem was not their larger house. It was treating one housing choice as the correct measure for everyone. On the anniversary of Rose's death, Anna brought flowers to my ranch. She said the house felt full of decisions Rosa had made, even though she had never met her. We walked through the small kitchen, and I showed her the cabinet where the first property ledgers had been stored. The ledgers listed ordinary amounts: paint, locks, furnace filters, late fees waived, and checks deposited. There was no dramatic millionaire moment. Repetition turned those entries into equity over decades. The result looked surprising only to people who had ignored the years. I digitized the ledgers but kept one original book for my children. It showed both income and mistakes. A security deposit had been mishandled early, and we reimbursed the tenant with interest. Later pages showed the separate account Rosa created, so it would not happen again. My estate plan required any child keeping the rentals to retain professional management for at least 2 years. That period would give them time to learn or sell without reacting during grief. Tenants should not experience family mourning as unstable service. At renewal, they requested permission for a small shed. Summit approved a standard model with setbacks. I learned about it in the monthly capital report after management had decided. The boundary protected them from feeling watched and protected me from casual exceptions. Elise later asked why Jordan received access to a family-owned rental. I showed her the application and market terms without disclosing private details. She understood but asked that future opportunities be communicated clearly. We added a family transaction policy to the estate documents. That policy required independent pricing, ordinary screening, written conflicts, and no assumption of inheritance. It sounded formal for people who loved one another. Formality prevented love from becoming a weapon when expectations differed. My own house received new paint after the storm. I chose the same simple color and repaired the back step board. Barbara visited months later and called the place comfortable. I noticed she avoided the word cheap. She later apologized directly. She said the remark had been about her fear that retirement would make people stop respecting us. I accepted the apology without promising that appearances no longer affected either of us. Habits change through repeated choices, not one careful sentence. I apologize for letting my silence become a private comparison. Part of me had enjoyed knowing the portfolio would surprise her. Quiet success was healthiest when it protected privacy, not when it waited for the perfect moment to reverse embarrassment. Our next family dinner took place at my ranch because the table fit everyone who mattered. Leon brought dessert, Barbara helped with dishes, and nobody discussed property values. The house remained small. The family had finally stopped treating that fact as a verdict. I did not need her to admire the portfolio. The houses mattered because they remained safe, financially stable homes, and because they supported the life Rosa and I planned. Their similarity was a strength, not an embarrassment. My in-laws called my house cheap because they confused price signals with value. Learning that I quietly owned 6 more like it surprised them, but the portfolio was not a trophy. It carried roofs, valves, leases, reserves, and families who deserved consistency. I could have lived in a larger house. I chose one that was paid for, useful, and honest about what I needed.